switched over very quickly. We were alerted to our secondary delivery system, so that disaster was diverted for residents inside the City of Flint because of the new system that we built here in the City of Flint.
Flint Mayor Sheldon Neeley says the city immediately switched to their backup water source this morning, avoiding a boil water advisory. This all comes after a 120-inch water main break was discovered in Macomb County along the Great Lakes Water Authority water line. That's where Flint gets their water from. Right now, 13 communities are under a boil water advisory. Take a look at your screen. The highlighted areas are the communities that remain under the boil water advisory. The only part of Mid-Michigan that is under that advisory is a small portion of Lapeer County. There's no timetable as to when that advisory could be lifted for these areas. Well, the City of Flint was able to avoid going under a boil water advisory due to their backup water supply they put in place earlier this year. The city is now getting its water from the Genesee County Drain Commission. Mid-MichiganNow's Chloe Godbold has been on this story all day, and she joined us now live in the Content Center. Chloe, it looks like the city's backup plan worked.
It did. So, Dave, that's a great question. Mayor Sheldon Neeley tells me the backup plan did work, or if I may say, the backup water system worked. And now the water is coming from the Genesee County Drain Commission until the problem with GLWA is solved. Mayor Sheldon Neeley says they made the quick decision to switch over to the city's secondary water delivery system this morning when they got word of the major water main break with GLWA. The backup water system cost them $17 million, money he says was well spent.
The Flint River water was the backup source of water. I made a conscious decision that never again would residents have to drink from the Flint River water.
The mayor says the backup delivery system can accommodate the whole city of Flint. Michael Brown, who is the director of the City of Flint's Department of Public Works, says it all started with a pumping pressure call from the Great Lakes Water Authority of GLWA.
A little bit later, they called and said that they had a main break, and so we then closed our system to the pipeline that leads to them.
I talked to Virginia Nolan, who's been a resident of Flint for over 40 years. Virginia says she is happy the city has a backup water supply, avoiding what would have been a difficult situation.
Now lessons have been learned. That's my main point. We have all learned the lessons of this water crisis.
Others like Philip Wise have been living in Flint since the 1950s. And after living through the water crisis, he tells me it's tough to trust the water.
We only shower with the water system we have in Flint, that we don't use it for drinking water. I'm skeptical, let's say that. I'll still use bottled water.
Everyone knows or have heard of the Lone Ranger, but not everyone knows the real story. According to members at the McCray Theater, that knowledge is what they're trying to bring to Flint as a whole, but particularly their youth.
This kind of information that you're going to learn from this play should be taught in school.
The story of the Lone Ranger is one that has been told many times, but rarely told the way the actors and community members at the McCray Theater in Flint are telling it. Artistic Education Director Kathy Johnson says it's bringing history and art to Flint.
Charles Winfrey, our executive director, happened to pen this particular piece called The Legend of Bass Reeves. And the whole impetus of the play is that it's about a character named Bass Reeves. Most of us don't even know he even existed. But if you ever saw The Lone Ranger and his sidekick Tonto, that's who that character was basically based on.
Johnson tells me the Lone Ranger is often depicted as a white man, but was really the first black deputy U.S. Marshal. A historian also working on the play says it wasn't until just recently people began acknowledging the reality of the characters and what really happened during that time period.
We weren't taught, especially in my generation when the Lone Ranger was running, we were taught to be second class. And so they didn't teach us heroism, they taught us to be victims.
He tells me while the truth is known among people now, it's rarely talked about in classrooms. I'm told that is why actors from the community decided to join the production.
We as black folks really don't know a lot about our history. And this is part of history that I think black folks really need to know.
Dr. Faisal Mari specializes in pediatrics and children's urgent care, and he says the vaccination rate has dropped for toddlers because of the pandemic. And one mother tells me she did not let the pandemic stop her from getting her child vaccinated.
People did not feel comfortable coming to see their physicians or their primary care doctors due to COVID.
He's gotten every vaccine that he could get as of now, yes.
Skylar Rogers is from Davison and takes her 2-year-old son, Oliver, to Dr. Mari on a regular basis. Skylar says she and her fiance have always wanted their son to be healthy and safe.
Me and my fiance both were really up to date on his vaccines. We've always thought that was very important. We're obviously both vaccinated as well.
According to the Michigan Academy of Family Physicians, vaccines for toddlers have fallen 6%, leaving 32% of Michigan toddlers at risk for preventable diseases. Dr. Faisal Mari has been practicing medicine for 30 years and owns 3 children's clinics in Mid-Michigan. He says right now many of his patients are due for updated vaccines.
Some children that were born before the pandemic, you may find that up to 30% of those children are not up to date in their immunization status.
Dr. Mari says this decline in vaccines of preventable diseases like measles and polio in toddlers could be on the rise.
Now we are seeing the re-emergence of vaccine preventable diseases. There's an outbreak obviously in polio. Now we have seen an increased numbers of measles across the country.
To prevent this, Dr. Mari wants to leave people with this important message that could save your child. And for Skylar, she just wants people to understand the importance of vaccinations for children.
Vaccine is 100% safe and 100% effective. They have been in the past and they will be in the future.
They could get that vaccine, it can prevent them from a serious reaction, death, and it's like, do you really want to gamble when it comes to your child's life? I think that's more so the important part of it all.
Dr. Mari urges parents to stay updated with their children's vaccination status, and he says you can do this by requesting a vaccination record from your child's primary care physician.